takes a snap, rolls right, looks into the end zone. Hunter in front, caught it! Touchdown! Touchdown!
Welcome to WrestleMania!
It's now my honor to announce that the first ever virtual NFL draft is officially open.
Blitz coming. Mariota throws in the end zone. Man is there. Touchdown, Titans!
Using my only.
I'm hopeless in the crossfire. There's nowhere to go. I'm holding my desires. My heart overflows. The only direction that I'll ever need is a deeper connection that's leading me. And I'm lost in your love when you hold me. Just hold me, 'cause I don't wanna run from your heartbeat. Your heartbeat, no, 'cause I'm lost in your love. I can't break the fall, you're taking it all. I'm lost in your love. I'm lost in your love. I'm lost in your love. I'm lost in your No words can change the future of us. The waves, they break, but we are enough. The only direction that I'll ever need is a deeper connection that's leading me. And I'm lost in your love when you hold me. Just hold me, 'cause I don't wanna run from your heartbeat. Your heartbeat, no, 'cause I'm lost in your love. I can't break the fall, you're taking it all. I'm lost in your love. 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 Lost in your love. I'm lost in your
Separated through the miles, searching for the answer to our trials. We came so far through our weakness. We found a love, even the stars between us won't bury us. One day we can be together, and this moment
showtime. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Ooh, let's go racing today, boys.
Watson takes a snap, rolls right, looks into the end zone. Hunter in front, caught it! Touchdown! Touchdown!
Welcome to WrestleMania!
It's now my honor to announce that the first ever virtual NFL draft is officially open.
Blitz coming. Mariota throws in the end zone. Man is there. Touchdown, Titans!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Oh my God, I've been so excited for this. Welcome to the Xperts of Racing SportsCast, the return. It has been so long since I've been able to put this together, and I've had the help of some amazing people. One of those amazing people right now is Mr. Vols Fan 88. Vols, I know you're joining us really early. It's around 7 o'clock in the morning from Korea over there right now, but man, we're finally here. How are you feeling this morning?
Good morning. It is 5:31 Eastern Standard Time, 4:31 over in the central part of America. Well, it's 7:32 a.m. over here. I have a A&W root beer, a nice Copenhagen mint long cut, and I have your beautiful voice in my ear. Let's get this going. Let's debate some sports. What a way to wake up than to finally debut this podcast that we have been talking about for so long. Everybody, thank you for tuning in on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, you name it. Share the stream, talk some shit in the chat. Let's have some fun, and let's see hype. Let's get hype.
Definitely get hype is a big thing here, and one guy that always gets me hype is the crew chief himself, Robert Harding. He's going to be in here in the voice chat with us as well. Mr. Harding, how are you doing this evening for us? I'll say that.
I'm doing great. Excited to get this rolling. We've been talking about it for a couple of months, so I'm just ready.
Definitely, and a lot of excitement. Expect guest appearance Ben Smith later on in the broadcast. But right now, to talk about us, here's our intros as we go through. Of course, you know me. Nothing too much to go over right here, of course. And then you have Vols, of course, that you know. Short and sweet, he liked it that way. So we're going with that as well. But the big man that many people are unsure of, Crew Chief Robert Harding, he's a OMA Ford Development Co-Director. He crew chiefed me last season and is crew chiefing Ike Shelley in the OMA VRC Cup Series. He's a lifelong NASCAR fan, lifelong football fan, and the owner of Red Dirt Racing. So happy to have him on board. And guys, we're all the way through introductions. Why don't we just go ahead and hop right into our first debate topic? It's Eagles versus Washington and what I like to call the prime time disaster. Terry, go ahead and give me, simple as that. It was a primetime disaster. What's your opinion on what we saw on primetime whenever these two played each other?
So the difference between what Philly did and what any other team would do is Philly did it to develop their team. You can't put Jalen Hurts in a position to get hurt when he's the future of Philadelphia. If the New York Giants wanted to make the playoffs, they would have won more games. Or they just would have tanked like any other team would when Daniel Jones got hurt. I'm sick of the narrative that Philly screwed them. No, they screwed themselves. They wasn't good enough to win. They wasn't good enough to get through a disastrous NFC East. The Washington football team was. So Philly putting Jalen Hurts on the sideline, yeah, he might have been upset, but come on. The difference between what they did and winning that game was 5 draft picks. I'm taking the higher draft pick than going down in the bottom of the barrel just to let another team win a division when you have nothing to gain out of it. You have zero to gain if you're Philadelphia. So good on Doug Peterson.
And looking at this, I kind of have to agree with you a little bit, but I also agree with what Joe Judge says. it's not anything against other teams that tank that are trying to rebuild, but when you do it in one specific game, especially on primetime television, it's bad enough when some of the commentators call you out about it. And I understand if they're trying to save that draft pick, it's a smart idea. They have a lot that they need to build around, like you mentioned before. But when you have guys like Jason Kelsey, and even you're upsetting your quarterback. There was rumors around that even some of the Eagles players had to be held back from Doug Peterson after the game. I mean, they upset a lot of people, even within the Eagles fan base, based on what happened, because it was a lot of people caught it an embarrassment not only to the NFL and to the Eagles, but to the sport in general. And I mean, that's going to leave a question. I'm like, what does that look like for you as an outside of the Eagles fan base? What does that look like for you heading forward with their franchise?
They're still a Super Bowl caliber team. Yeah, Carson Wentz has had a down season, but why are they so mad? Why are they so angry that a team did something to benefit the team? It's mind blowing to hear what I just heard in my ear, and it's not your fault, and it's not Doug Peterson's fault. Why are the Philadelphia fans so dumb to not realize that you just went from pick number 9, where you potentially could have ended up if you won that game, to I believe pick number 4 or 5.
They're at, I believe
Why
they're at
wouldn't you?
6. I believe they're at 6.
Whatever. You would have dropped so far in the draft because you won a meaningless game in week 17 that the only person that benefited on this planet is the New York Giants. And nobody, and I mean nobody that's on the Philadelphia Eagles gives a rat's ass about the New York Giants. Nobody.
It's more of a hate
So
relationship
they
between
can
those two franchises.
they can whine and complain all they want. I don't care. But on draft day, when the Philadelphia Eagles are taking a pick that they actually need, like somebody on offense or maybe another pass rusher or somebody in the secondary, something that they really need down the road, then I don't want to hear the Philadelphia Eagles whine and complain because they did the right thing.
And that's gonna be something definitely to look forward to. But this game, like you mentioned, it affected in several different ways what the playoffs looked like. We could have seen the Giants in instead of the Washington football team. And speaking of the playoffs, and I think Robert was about to poke me right there about our possible time situation, but poking our way to the next little slide here. It's going to be about the NFL playoffs. Right there, you can see the NFC and AFC teams marked here, and the playoffs are set. What now? We're going to go ahead and move forward. And Terry, I'm going to go ahead and let you take your swing at things with the AFC. These are the teams that are in. These are the matchups you're seeing. Of course, Kansas City getting the 1 week bye. What do you see happening here with these teams in a very competitive AFC?
Um, so you see here you had Indianapolis going against Buffalo. Personal opinion, I think Indianapolis is going to win. Yes, hate me, say what you want in the chats, say whatever. I think Indianapolis is a fighting team. They're scrappy. They do what they do. Buffalo is the hottest team in the NFL right now, and I know that they could win this game. My prediction: Indianapolis is going to pull it out. Old man Rivers, with his 19 billion kids, is going to go advance to the next round. Then we drop down to Baltimore, Tennessee. I don't think it's a. I don't think anybody in this chat knows or doesn't know that I'm a Titans fan. I don't think Tennessee's winning this game. Yeah, you got Derrick Henry, you got Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown, Corey Davis. Baltimore's heating up at the right time. They messed up last season. They heated up early in the season. They lost to Tennessee in a miserable, very embarrassing game. They lost to us earlier this season in a long, drawn out game. So Baltimore there, Baltimore Indy, and then in Browns Steelers. Steelers are about to wipe the floor with Cleveland. And I mean, they are about to slap the shit out of the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland could barely beat an expert. I don't know if you watched the game, but they could barely beat a third string practice squad. So, nah. I've got Indy, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. That's your AFC teams this weekend. That's gonna put a mark on the game here.
And out of all those teams you're sending forward, is there anybody that you think realistically can actually match up with the Kansas City Chiefs and possibly take that Super Bowl spot away?
No.
Not at all. So that's pretty much a lock. Now moving forward to the NFC, and I think a lot of these could possibly, I think some of these could be toss-ups, believe it or not, once we get into the divisional round with a lot of this stuff. I think it's clear to see LA at Seahawks. I see no way, shape, or form that the Seahawks lose this game. It would be a miracle for the Seahawks to lose this game, in my opinion. A interesting one, and hate me, just like you said earlier, hate me, whatever you want to say. I could see Washington pulling off the upset against Tampa Bay. However, I do not see it happening. I see Brady's leadership being able to lead a extremely talented team. As long as they stay consistent, they've had problems with that earlier in the season, but like you mentioned, they're looking pretty decent right now, so I'm looking at them. Bears and Saints, it's going to be difficult to look at these two teams and see what's up, but the players that are surrounding the Saints as far as talent, I feel like will carry that team into the next round. And to be honest, it's going to be interesting to say because you said Kansas City's basically a lock for the Super Bowl. I just don't see that happening with the Packers here. Looking at them being the first round bye, I don't see that happening. Of course, I'm not going to doubt them being able to make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be as easy of a road as you mentioned with the AFC teams. I mean, I just think that as far as Kansas City, I agree they're way too good to be stopped. But looking at the overall playoff picture, I do not see those bottom two teams right there being the matchup that we're looking at whenever we move forward into the games this playoff season. It's definitely going to be interesting, though. Talking about the teams looking here on the board. By the way, shout out to everybody in chat that's with us right now. First of all, Atlanta Racing, Mama Vols, Ethan Hoffman, all of those people out there, unknown, still out there as well. Thank you for all the support. Also, all of our viewers on Facebook, thank you for joining us right here. Right now, Terry, you're looking at all this. Who is you said Kansas City already, but out of the NFC teams, I want to get your opinion. Who is the most favorable matchup to go against Kansas City possibly, or do you stick with it's definitely going to be the Green Bay Packers?
I don't think the Green Bay Packers are going to go. Granted, that's everybody's dream matchup. That's what everybody wants to see. The two State Farm guys going ahead to the Super Bowl.
State Farm would love that.
Shout out to State Farm.
This was not a paid promotion.
The matchup that I would like to see, I'd like to see Seattle, Kansas City.
That's
from
what
a
I'm
fan's
thinking.
perspective.
That's what
I want to see that.
And
So
that
if that happens, it happens.
that would be interesting as well because the dynamic defense that Seahawks, I mean, even when the Legion of Boom collapsed, they always had that dynamic defense, even when they were rebuilding it, to where that defense could be good on any given day. So, I mean, definitely looking overall at what. Oh, Lord. Drink a coffee, Terry. Alpha's already in chat.
Alpha. No, I'm sorry. You can tell me all you want that anybody in the AFC, Kansas City's a lock. There's not another team. Buffalo's going to choke like they do every year. Buffalo does it across the board. They come into the playoffs. They choke. They choke. Tennessee can't stay on Derrick Henry's back for so long. We don't have a defense that's going to stop Lamar Jackson. And if we do, oh man, whatever. We shock the world again. We go off and then we get thumped in the second round. it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it plays off. And anybody who's watching as a Cleveland Browns fan, I'm sorry. I'm going to hurt your feelings. They're not that good, and they protected Baker Mayfield for the past year or 2 years. They've surrounded him with a bunch of people to try to make him look good, but he's not that good. He's not the franchise quarterback. He's not going to take you to a Super Bowl. You're lucky you made the playoffs. Congratulations. La-di-da. You made the playoffs because Pittsburgh didn't want to play on a Sunday. Chiefs, Buccaneers, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Buccaneers are not going to the Super Bowl. It's not happening. Washington could beat them this weekend as a losing shitty NFC East team. There's no way. I'm going on a tangent. Expert, you.
Well, I done started something. I can already tell, but I mean, I agree with Terry.
That's not how that works, Alpha.
I could definitely see Washington, in my opinion, could definitely be the team to beat the Buccaneers. Either way, I don't see the Buccaneers even making it past Seattle if they match up with them, or I don't even see them beating any of the NFC teams, even if they get past Washington. I don't see them getting past Seattle. I don't see them getting past the Saints. I don't see them getting past Green Bay. And, I mean, looking at all the teams that you have said before, I mean, it's definitely like, I just don't see it. Brady has proven his lack of being able to move forward despite the talent that he has. Consistency has been a big issue, and it's notable that, oh, Lord. Sleepers. Okay, you can say sleepers all you want to. And speaking of sleepers, the outside guys looking in, there's been big trade rumors that Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, Arthur Blank, they have already said they're both up for grabs. Deshaun Watson has asked for a trade. So while we're talking about the guys in the playoffs, the ones on the outside looking in, who would benefit from the most out of any of those guys, or heck, even guys that we're talking, teams that we're talking about right here, who would benefit most by a leadership change and can possibly pull it off to pick up Watson, Ryan, or Jones?
Washington. And I hope, I have so many people, and I'm gonna pause that for 1 second, and I'm gonna go to what you're saying in this chat. Alpha, they are not sleepers. They were heavy favorites going into the season. They were the hype train of Cleveland a year ago, and Cleveland didn't make it. Excuse me. Tampa Bay made the playoffs because they played, I don't know, a bunch of teams. When they played actual competition, they lost. Washington's not a slouch. Washington's not a team that you're just going to follow, that's just going to roll over and take it. Alex Smith can actually play at home.
Especially if he's healthy.
It doesn't matter.
That's going to be big.
Especially if he's healthy. And then the run game defense is great. If there's no way. Thank you, Harley. I'm not sleeping on Brady and company. I'm not sleeping at all on Brady and the company.
I've already said
they could win. They could win.
They definitely could.
I think Washington is going to win.
They could, and that's why I said it'd be an upset. Like, I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm saying it would be an upset that I could definitely see happening, though. An upset that I wish I could see happening was Browns upsetting the Steelers because of how inconsistent the Steelers have been in the second half of the season. And I agree, they're not. Their head coach is going to be out with COVID. They got a few players out with COVID. An outbreak is literally hitting Cleveland in possibly the worst time. The time that they're set up best to possibly make a run in the playoffs, they are falling apart quicker than anything. And that's going to be an issue for them.
The Buccaneers aren't getting enough credit for their defense. That's fantastic. Their defense is okay. Their defense is good. But is their defense good against good offenses? No, they're not. They let a man like Aaron Rodgers, they let a man like Drew Brees, they let the teams that have a good offense expose their good defense, as you said. And yes, we agree. The Browns are dog shit. You can say it in the chat. That's exactly what they are. Yeah, and Chubb, you're right. He's going to have to run for 300 yards because Baker Mayfield's not going to put a team on his back because he can't. Congratulations, you won a Heisman in college. So did Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel won one as well. And where is he right now? He's probably at Walmart. He's probably at Walmart stocking your shelves because he's worthless. He's been worthless since day one. And you know what? It's 7:50 in the morning. I'm a little bit hyped up now.
All right.
But
All right.
Cleveland's trash, and they're going to get exposed this weekend. And Tampa Bay's going to get exposed too.
Alpha's having fun arguing with Terry. Will it's going to be? I don't think there's going to be much arguing in our next segment after this one, as we look to go to our wrestling. As we look to go to our wrestling segment, which is going to be up next. You do not want to miss anything we have laying ahead of you, so stick around, and we will be right back after this quick commercial break.
And guys, it's showtime. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Ooh, let's go racing today, boys.
Watson takes a snap, rolls right, looks into the end zone. Hunter Renfro caught it! Touchdown! Touchdown!
Welcome to WrestleMania!
It's now my honor to announce that the first ever virtual NFL draft is officially open.
Blitz coming. Mariota throws in the end zone. Man is there. Touchdown, Titans!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Experts of Racing Sportscast. We've already gone past the NFL, and now we're moving on to another big story. It's probably the biggest one that we're going to talk about, especially if you're a WWE fan. Raw completely, I'll say it myself, and I agree. We're going to talk about a certain promo that happened later in the show and whatnot, but Raw, even Terry mentioned to me, don't even watch it, and I ended up watching a little bit of it. And I mean, the depending on retirees for ratings just to make the show look good shows how desperate they are to try to get back the hardcore fans that they're losing now to other companies such as Impact, New Japan, and AEW. I mean, it's desperation at this point that you're seeing, and for Ali to actually, Ali had his pipe bomb moment, and I hate to bring up CM Punk, reference that, but he had his pipe bomb moment that night, and I mean, they're really throwing their true stars under the bus to try to promote their content. It's just it's as a wrestling fan, there's a reason I switched to mainly being fans of the independent wrestling scene, and it's stuff like this to see talent getting wasted and thrown under the bus. And Terry, I know you're a big one when it comes to this as well, and how upset just this one episode made you. I mean, go ahead and just. I mean, I have no words on how bad it was. I think
It's no secret.
Yeah.
It's no secret that a lot of people hide that they're a wrestling fan. They don't admit it. They stopped admitting it when Stone Cold Steve Austin stopped fighting. He stopped wrestling. Whatever. We quit admitting it to people because it was embarrassing. Well, why is it embarrassing? Oh, it's fake. Whatever. Who cares? But it's the same thing as going to a movie and sitting there for 2.5 hours watching some stupid Julia Roberts movie about something that you don't care about. And I can't think of the movie. Harley, if you're in the chat, what's that movie that you forced me to watch that was stupid long, and I really thought I was just going to die in the end of it. But so I read this. I'm going to read this. You can pull the graphic up on the screen for me.
Gotcha.
I'm going to read along. So for the people out there, we're going to test my reading skills. I don't have my glasses, so bear with me here. This is from Ali. So I'm agitated. I'm angry, but most of all, I'm confused. We dedicate a 3-hour show to old has-beens. You want to call them quote-unquote legends, call them whatever. They had their time. A night like tonight is exactly what's wrong with this company. 3 hours to guys that can barely walk. And then he gets interrupted. He gets interrupted by R-Truth. And R-Truth says you need to show respect. And at this part in this in this promo, he goes off, like he goes to a new extent. Respect. Listen, I'm not bewildered. I know exactly that generation before me paved the way, which they did. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, those guys paved the way for people like Ali to be here now. But when the hell are you going to let me walk on the path? Guys like Drew Gulak, Akira Tozawa, myself, Retribution, not on the show. Why? Because we need to hear more of what you're going to do, brother, for the 7th millionth time. And then they talk about how much they got the cheers in it. Well, they pumped the cheers. They pumped them in real good for people who didn't get they didn't get the hype behind it. So this is why people have jumped ship, and this is why people stopped watching wrestling years ago. And for the 11 people that's out here on Twitch, I'm sure Alpha has the biggest grin on his face because we talked about this together. Being a wrestling fan in today's generation is so hard because the product that's pumped down our throat is meant for 7-year-olds, but it's still a grown-ass product. But if you flip that channel to TNT, brother, and you go watch AEW, where they don't put on smoke and mirrors, and yeah, okay, they signed Sting. They sure did. They signed Sting. But do you see Sting wrestle? Do you see them waste 2.5 hours for whatever? And yeah, my wife said it. She only watches for The Undertaker. She watches for The Undertaker. And it's sad that year in and year out, WWE brought The Undertaker back for what? To watch him break his fucking hip? To watch him get a concussion in the ring against a crappy Goldberg match? To have him injure himself for his kids, for his wife, or whatever. You put these quote unquote legends in there, and I think I have a good bit of time left on this subject.
Oh yeah,
but I'm going to ask you, Expert. But I'm going to ask you, when you watched Raw on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put that Raw?
Oh, I mean, it was definitely, in my opinion, I mean, it just showed how desperate they are, like you were mentioning. You brought up Sting and AEW. I mean, that he's being brought in to put over more talent. Literally, the only time they were using cameos is the only time they were using legends on Raw was specifically for cameos. Sting's not in a cameo. He's in a story. The same thing with Arn Anderson over there. AEW is literally using their quote-unquote legends to push other talent, and that's something that the WWE has not recently realized until for some unknown switch that got flipped, and they were like, okay, Undertaker's going to start putting over people that's not named Brock Lesnar. Triple H is going to start putting over people. The Rock is going to start putting over people. Like, I mean, and we haven't even seen what The Rock put over John Cena. That's the last person I think he put over. I mean, this is freaking insane what they're doing with this product nowadays, to where you wonder why a lot of talent gets buried and they're lost in the shadows. There's a big reason, and I'm going to say this, despite all the claims that happened before, there's a reason Triple H is keeping Velveteen Dream down in NXT, because I guarantee you, as long as he stays on a righteous freaking path, that he will be the future of the WWE. Go ahead and hate me for it. But, I mean, it was even mentioned before, and we talked about it previously before the show, I think about a week ago, was Alpha York, who was actually in chat, that how much Vince has thrown this company under the bus, whether it's because of his decline in health that has been well noted, or something along the lines of that, in which he's become very unpredictable. The creative team has gone off the rails, and you've seen it happen because Paul Heyman is no longer one of the heads of creative there. He quit that a long time ago whenever Eric Bischoff was named head of creative. I wonder why that experiment fizzled out. What was the company you bought 20 years ago? So, that, I mean, it definitely sets up a narrative that shows that the WWE realizes that they're in trouble now, because the hardcore fan base.
They don't.
They're not necessarily
They're
not necessarily in trouble, but they've lost a considerable amount of their fan base.
But they don't realize that. The only people that realize it's the USA Network, and if it wasn't for USA, they wouldn't have brought back Hulk Hogan. They wouldn't have. how can you bring back a superstar? How can you bring a wrestler back that went on a racist tangent and is not accepted by the people in the locker room? How do you do that? Oh, it's easy. You wave your hand to the crowd and put it over your ear, brother, and what you gonna do? Who gives a crap? Who gives a crap what Hulk Hogan's gonna do? Nobody cares. He's just there to pump a paycheck into his wallet.
Well, I
You
mean,
have Ric Flair, Big Show, and Mark Henry getting belittled on screen by Randy Orton. Did that push Randy Orton's feud with The Fiend? Absolutely not. Made no sense at this point in his career that he's the quote unquote legend killer. Randy, you're just as big of a legend as anybody else in the business. So stop the legend killer bullshit because you're not him anymore.
yeah,
You're
I mean,
you're the best thing that's going. You're the best thing that's going.
I'm gonna add this in there to that point. And you mentioned about how they're like trying to bring people in for slight cameos to extend feuds. Like this is what I was mentioning with AEW being able to push it more because Sting hasn't wrestled one match. I think he said one promo in his entire time there, and that was the night after Winter Has Fallen, or the next show after Winter Has Fallen, and he actually spoke, and that was the one time. And else he's just slightly been a protector and mentor of TNT champion Darby Allin. You go over here and you see Charlotte Flair turning heel on her own father for what, the 10th time? Like we haven't seen that before. I mean, it's insane what this company is trying to attempt now with what they're doing. And I see Alpha already in chat. Jay White to NXT rumor.
Yep.
Jay White's been
Go
also talking about
look.
AW too. So I mean, it's all over the place with Jay White.
Also, look at what he put in the chat right below that. What Goldberg, and this is the cameo that I'm going to.
Oh yeah.
Do we have what Goldberg said to Drew McIntyre closing Raw, which I 1,000,000% disagree that that's going to be the main event of the Royal Rumble. That is stupid. That is the dumbest main event that I've seen since, I don't know, Taker Goldberg at the whatever the Saudi Arabia show was. Stupid. Goldberg should not be challenging for a title because you have people that actually deserve it. You got people that you could have pushed and elevated to the next level instead of holding people off television for, I don't know, a belittled Legends night. You could have put somebody in the main event against Drew McIntyre like a Sheamus. I think the
That would have
Keith
been a good
Lee match was just underrated. That got overshadowed because Goldberg came out. But Goldberg talks about Drew McIntyre lacks respect. Oh, okay. No, he doesn't. The guy's busted his ass, and you just made him look like a placeholder to set up another storyline, hopefully with Roman Reigns. But that's probably not going to come to fruition because
Those
God
plans have
forbid
been
Vince McMahon
all
does
over the
anything to
place.
do anything good.
Those plans have been all over the place. And you mentioned about all the racist stuff earlier with Hulk Hogan still being a big part of WWE. I mean, do we not need to bring up the ECW promo with John Cena and Booker T there with Vince McMahon? I don't think we need to. I think that speaks for itself on how much they care about that stuff. But we're going to literally, that's going to be the biggest thing for them overall, to look at the full package that they're trying to present and just realize how asinine, their creative decisions have become. I mean, it's almost idiotic, and it's hard sometimes to watch the content that they're producing now. And like I said, and like you were saying, they could push better talent than have Goldberg in a main event. I don't know how many times a year, and he signed a contract. I think Alpha was mentioning it a few weeks ago. Thank you, Alpha, for the information. In which he signed a deal that was like 2 or 3 matches all the way up into 2023. I mean, are we crazy? And the amount of times they scrapped the plans for what Roman's going to do at Mania this year, nobody even knows who's going to win the Royal Rumble. It's rumored that Becky's going to come back, which pray to God she freaking does, because I feel like that could help out the women's division a lot, because I'm tired of Charlotte Flair. I'm sure a lot of people are, despite her only being back for, 2 weeks? I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy to see what they're doing right now, and it's crazy to think where this company is headed as we move forward. Looking at, like, I mean, I just find it completely annoying about what happens. But I mean, Robert, what are we sitting at on time right now? Because I don't want to go over because we still have a lot to talk about on this topic.
We got about 7 minutes.
Well, Terry, go ahead because I know
7 minutes.
I know you still got a lot to say as far as like how. I mean, this Raw and how it's leading create. I understand appreciating. I love the throwback Raw nights from before in which they came out and made an appearance. But I mean, you go and sing what's on Raw, and then you see the Bullet Club or whatever you want to call it being reunited on AEW. You talk about giving what the fans want, and you see the difference between the two promotions as they stand today. So go ahead. I mean, I know you have a lot to say, especially on the comparison between those two.
I was not a big AEW fan. I forced Harley to watch the first AEW with me. We didn't watch many other more. We kind of just, we were there. We watched. But if you put a comparison between the two, one's ran by wrestlers. One's ran by what the wrestlers want, how people should get pushed. Their matches matter because you have people in AEW that can really, truly show their craft across the board. And eventually, I could talk wrestling for hours. I could because it's passionate. If you put wrestlers out there and you say that WWE is the future of wrestling, I see WWE being the second brand in wrestling in the next 5 years. 5 years, I say AEW takes the flagship unless Vince McMahon dies. And I know that's very crappy to say, and I feel bad that I said it. But unless Vince McMahon either passes the torch or dies and gives the baton to Triple H, WWE is going to be the second show. It's going to be your second choice. Everybody's going to go to AEW, and people like me who's been a WWE fan since I was born in '95. I've been watching wrestling since '95, '96. I remember if my sister and them are in chat on Facebook, I remember when Kane was taking his mask off with Rob Van Dam, when The Undertaker was the American Badass, when wrestling was good, John Cena coming out, Kurt Angle was out there. I used to wrestle with my sisters and have fun. And I loved wrestling. Wrestling was the whole world. It was key to success down the road. But where they lost their minds was when we're going to go extreme. We're going to bring Hogan back for a match with Shawn Michaels and put Hulk Hogan over. Why are you putting people over who don't come in full time? Why is Brock Lesnar getting a main event spot when he's there 4 nights out of the week? Why is Goldberg getting put over when he's there 2 nights out of the week? Why are you doing this? Why would you put people over? And I love what AEW's doing. Sting came in for a teaching role for Darby. That's genius because Darby is a great talent. And Darby's going to go far. And with Sting in his ear, teaching these young guys, oh my gosh, wrestling's going to get so much better on AEW. So much better.
Okay, go ahead and pick. There's a difference in. I'm going to quote a promo from before. There's a difference between professional wrestling and wrestling. And there's a big difference between that. You have sports entertainment, wrestling, and professional wrestling. And that's it. Professional wrestling.
Kurt Angle was a wrestling god.
Yes. Well, okay, JBL. All right. You had to use that. You had to use wrestling.
True. But it's true. But
It
it's
is.
true. But it's true. Brock Lesnar is a wrestling technician. But wrestling is what they put out there of a different product. Wrestling, you'll find it in the Olympics. You'll find that, the good stuff. Daniel Bryan is a technician in the ring. Whatever. But let's go to the next one.
Definitely. Right now, we're going to go ahead and
Let's piss people off. Let's piss people off on the next segment.
Definitely. Going on, we're going to go and take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back as we move to our Going for Two segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I'm hopeless. lost in the crossfire. There's nowhere to go. I'm holding my desires. My heart overflows. The only direction that I'll ever need is a deeper connection that's leading me. And I'm lost in your love when you hold me. Just hold me, 'cause I don't wanna run from your heartbeat. Your heartbeat, no, 'cause I'm lost in your love. I can't break the fall, you're taking it all. I'm lost in your love. 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 Lost in your love. I'm lost in your love. Lower.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Sorry about that little break. Took one real quick right there. But here for our Going for Two segment as we're back under green here. The Heisman race, I think that settles itself. As you can see, the 4 Heisman candidates up there on the board. The 4 finalists, Trevor Lawrence of Clemson, Kyle Trask of Florida, Mac Jones, and Devontae Smith, respectively, from Alabama. And right now, talking about these 4 candidates, a lot of people thought it was going to be a toss-up between Devontae and Trevor Lawrence. Kyle Trask really didn't. Not many people believed he belonged there. They thought it should have been Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and Trevor Lawrence. Terry, going over the finalists, the 4 finalists just here before we get to the actual winner, what's your thought on who they selected and was voted into the finalist right here?
Devontae Smith was far above every single one of the people on this screen. Trevor Lawrence had a good season, but he wasn't the breakout guy that we thought he was. He struggled against an Ohio State defense that, to many people, didn't have much chance. I think they came into the game and it was a 7-point underdog. Kyle Trask, you had Kyle Pitts. That's all you had. Mac Jones is incredible. He's going to be great in the national championship. But Devontae Smith winning the Heisman was the absolute best choice. I think he should have had more first place votes. It wasn't even close, but he should have gotten a 200. 200. He should have set a record of how many first place votes you got, because he is an incredible talent. I'm not a Bama fan. I'm obviously a Tennessee Volunteer fan, but Devontae Smith is going to go down as a legend.
Definitely, he was able. As I always claimed that he was the best receiver to go to Alabama, and that says a lot based on what they have. He's the best receiver to go, and I'd say leave Alabama, and has probably the biggest ceiling since Julio Jones, and I think he can even go farther than that. And speaking, of course, we talked about it. He ended up winning the award. He's your 2020 Heisman winner. I mean, what is it looking at him and what he was able to do this season? A lot of people don't even have him ranked as the number 1 receiver in the NFL draft. What's your reaction to that as the draft gets closer and closer?
Well, obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to need a quarterback, and that's no slouch to Gardner Minshew. But they're going to need a quarterback, and yeah, Kyle Trask is probably going to go, or Trevor Lawrence is going to go number 1, but Devontae is going to go in the top 10, and Devontae is going to set the NFL on fire. That kid he's special. He is beyond special. You don't find people like him. You don't find wide receivers like him that can break it. He kind of reminds me of a DK Metcalf, only a little little bit lighter, but the speed that he has is a Tyreek Hill type speed, and I hope my Titans trade up for him, but we really don't need him, But man, he would be special. Philly, great,
Philly's the
great
spot.
pick for him.
Yeah.
If him and Jalen Hurts get together, it's over. Oh, it's over. Philly to the Super Bowl.
A lot of people have assumed that he could possibly. A lot of people, and I know on their already mock draft boards, they have him. Even though he's ranked the number 2 receiver in the draft behind Jamar Chase, a lot of people see him being the first receiver off the board going to a place like the Bengals or something like that. I know Alpha's a Bengals fan in there, so I want to see what he says in chat about that idea. About a lot of people have that as their possible pick over Jamar Chase, even despite Jamar and Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow comes back healthier and better than ever next year, being the LSU connection, I want to hear what he has to say about that possibly being the pick. Definitely, what's up, everyone in chat? Love to hear the feedback. Keep it rolling in there with your opinions and stuff like that. Where the only one thing to say, roll tide roll. Well, Mama Vols will be getting to that in 1 second. I'm not sure if you're gonna love what you hear though, but definitely 100% Devontae Smith, like you mentioned, he's an undersized DK Metcalf. He's physical for his size. In my opinion, he reminds me a lot of what DeAndre Hopkins was. Despite DeAndre has grown lighter than what he originally was, he was more of a physical receiver in college, in which he can still be a physical receiver. However, he has been known more for his route running and his ability to be a deep threat. And I think we've seen that with the Cardinals. We saw that whenever he was on the Texans being the main threat for Deshaun Watson. It's definitely going to be something to watch this kid and how he grows. And like I mentioned, the big game for him, moving on to Alabama versus Ohio State, and this is going to be a big topic of discussion. We were waiting to do this because Terry says he's going to piss some people off. You have number 1 Alabama going against, and they beat my Clemson Tigers, so I'll go ahead and say it. They are the number 2 team in the nation, Ohio State, going 1-on-1 with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Terry, go ahead and we're going to get to the tail of the tape of both of these teams and some of the big question marks for both sides, but go ahead and give us the preview of what we could possibly expect out of this game here, as it's definitely going to be one to be remembered. Not all the way for the best reasons, but definitely one that could be remembered.
Well, it's weird. I have an Ohio State fan in the chat. We have an Alabama fan in the chat, clearly. Mom put roll tide roll in the chat. Well, Mom, the Tide is going to get rolled. Ohio State defensively is better than a Notre Dame team in which Alabama struggled against. Alabama has an offense that's about it. Their defense is mid-par. Yes, it's easy to run the SEC. They barely got around Georgia. Georgia got a battle between them and Cincinnati. I think Ohio State wins this game. And Ohio State's going to win this game on multiple fronts. Their offensive line plays a little bit more physical than the Alabama's defense does. Alabama struggles statistically against a running quarterback. Justin Fields can move. He can roll out of the pocket. He can make throws. He can make reads. You pull up the tail of the tape. Number 1 in offense versus number 2 in offense. Number 1 in defense versus number 7 in defense. Ohio State didn't get many games, but their defense shut Clemson down, and Clemson had one of the best offenses coming into the game. So for a team that could have done what they've done, I think Ohio State across the board wins. I think it's going to be a lot of upset Alabama fans. Yeah, they might be number 1 and number 1 in defense and offense, but Bama's not going to be able to stop they're not going to be able to stop the offense for Ohio State. And it's going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions. It's going to come down to 1 stop. If Ohio State can stop them on their first drive coming out of halftime or their first drive going into the game, I think Ohio State takes the win. It's going to be huge. It's going to be epic for them to come out and start fast and keep that offense off the field, because that's what Alabama does, is they wear a defense out with their run game, with their vertical passing game. with the speed on the outsides. I'd be very excited to see Ohio State get an inside pass rush against Mac Jones and put him under pressure and rattle him a little bit.
The one thing that's going to be concerning for them is that Ohio State, and it's going to be the battle, they were able to shut down Travis Etienne for the most part, not allow him to get the big plays that usually help set up the Clemson offense. The problem with Najee Harris is you're looking at teams, they ran against a notable good run-stop defense, that being Notre Dame, and they ran it like no tomorrow. Najee Harris had a great game against that Notre Dame defense, so it's going to be questionable to see if Ohio State's going to be able to stop them. Also, the receivers for Clemson, despite Clemson only scoring 28 points, had a pretty good game against players like Shaun Wade and such. As Shaun Wade got beat on a few routes, and that's with freshman style receivers. I believe there's not that many receivers that are upperclassmen for Clemson. They were able to make huge plays on the Ohio State secondary. Now you move over to probably, and I will say definitely, the best receiving corps in the nation, being with Heisman winner Devontae Smith. And there's going to be a big question here as well, but you have Mechie as well. And then also, I'm going to pull this up, the big question mark, and these are the two question marks for this game. Jalen Waddle has been marked questionable for returning. Nick Saban has came out and said it's going to be a game day decision. So you could see Jalen Waddle actually being able to play in one last college football game ahead of him moving to the NFL in the NFL draft. And then also the other question mark is how healthy will Justin Fields be? Despite playing the game of his life against Clemson, he took a pretty nasty hit, which sent Clemson's defensive captain Solinsky to the locker room with a targeting call. But he took a nasty hit and was down for a while. And is from what Ryan Day over at Ohio State is still saying, he's still feeling the effects from that hit, still dealing with a lot of issues, being able to be mobile. Some of his throws are lacking due to the hit. And these teams have already left out for Miami, or Alabama has. Ohio State will be leaving out tomorrow and be arriving there tomorrow night. Alabama will be in Miami tonight. But for these two teams, these are the two question marks. What do you think the addition or subtraction of either one of these two guys could mean for this game?
Alrighty, it's about time to move on. Next topic.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle doesn't need to be on the field. You don't need him to prove a point. If you bring him out, he gets hurt. Season's over. His stuff is over. But yep, let's move down. Ohio State's going to win the game. My prediction. If I'm wrong, whatever. Next week we'll talk about it.
Definitely, and we're going to get set up for our Ben Smith interview, the extra North Division champion. We're going to take a 30-second break, and we will be right back.
I'm hopeless in the crossfire. There's nowhere to go. I'm holding my desires. My heart overflows. The only direction that I'll ever need is a deeper connection that's leading me. And I'm lost in your love when you hold me. Just hold me, 'cause I don't wanna run from your heartbeat. Your heartbeat, no, 'cause I'm lost in your love.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us once again on the Experts of Racing SportsCast. Of course, if you'd like a commercial or anything broadcasted during these segments, of course, for the promotion, be sure to contact me or VolsFan88 himself, and we would be glad to help you and possibly setting up a promotion for your own business, league, whatever you would possibly like to be promoted, and we will see what we can do. But now moving on into this segment, our guest appearance himself, the extra North Division champion and VRC rookie this year, Ben Smith. Of course, you see his bio right here. He is an OMA Ford Development driver. Of course, like I mentioned, the 2020 North Division champion for Extra. He is a 2021 VRC rookie racing the 14 for Hoffman Family Racing. He is dubbed the Endurance Dominator and is co-owner alongside me of Expert Smith Motorsports and Extra. Ben, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Expert. Thanks for having me on tonight. Really excited to have this interview rolling. Let's go.
Definitely, man. And I mean, you had a great season in 2020 in the Extra Series, moving now from all the way from the truck series of OMA to where you've been dubbed good enough to possibly be the second or even at times maybe the first driver for Hoffman Family Racing alongside good friends Michael Barron and Rally Golf. How confident are you moving into this season after a very successful extra season campaign?
I think I'm pretty confident for this season. You know, I've had a lot of experience racing around some of the best in the VRC business, like Drew Jua, Tyler McDonald, Riley Goff. I've been racing with him since day one. I think there are definitely a couple races that are winnable this year for sure. And I'm hoping to make a pretty deep run into the playoffs and prove that the hype around me is real.
Definitely, and the hype has been proven pretty well so far. Like I mentioned, you were dubbed the Endurance Dominator. You've won, I believe, now it's six endurance races in the
It's
off.
six endurance challenges out of I believe 9 or 10.
In the OMA off season, little series that they do. We even broadcasted one at Auto Club a few weeks back here on Vols Fans channel. I believe we broadcasted it there. But I mean, you've been able to prove your worth in these endurance challenges and have proven yourself to be a possible real threat in your first season of the VRC Cup Series. What is one thing you credit to being so prepared to move in to the VRC Cup Series and possibly go after a title and Rookie of the Year?
Well, I've got to give credit to a bunch of different categories. For one, I have to give it to the endurance challenges, the opportunity to race against all of these drivers that are in the VRC, knowing how they drive, their tendencies and whatnot. That's going to be a large advantage for sure. Another one is you, actually. You've held all the tests for our VRC drivers, and you've gathered data to aid us in our 2021 quest to go get a title. So there's a lot more that goes into what makes me confident for this season and how we can move forward and hopefully grab the trophy at the end of the year.
Definitely, and I know we have Crew Chief Robert Harding. I learned a lot about crew chiefing him when I decided to move over and crew chief you whenever we took that 2020 North Division Championship campaign. Robert, go ahead. I know you've been a big part of the Ford Racing development. Go ahead and give Ben some hard-hitting questions like you usually do.
My biggest question is, I know you personally, I know what you expect out of yourself for this season, but who to you is going to be your biggest competitor this year in VRC?
That is a really good question. And, you know, you can't count out anybody. There are a lot of great rookies coming in from VNS and others from Extra, such as Ike Shelley from VNS. Tim Moore from VNS will be a ginormous threat. Parker Ness, who was my championship rival in the Extra Series, he's going to be up there. It's a very, very stacked rookie class, and all the veterans who stuck around, like defending champion Drew Jua, Jarrett Talmadge, Riley Goff, they are all huge competitors. But if I had to narrow it down to the top three, I would have to say it would be Drew Jua, the defending champ, Tim Moore, huge prospect, might go to the pro league. And then it's down to between about 3 people from there. I think it's going to be Barron, because he's in practice times, in like normal trim, like qualifying trim, he's not the fastest, but when race time comes around, he is a force to be reckoned with. Riley Goff would be. Did I mention Riley a second? I'm sorry.
No. Originally,
Or no, I mentioned Tim a second.
Yeah.
I think Michael's going to be a threat. Riley is going to be a huge threat. He is the 2020 Rookie of the Year. Won two races. Could have won a couple of more if things would have went his way. Championship 4 contender last year. He's going to be up there all the time. And then the third biggest competitor for me is probably between Jarrett Talmadge and Vinny Lacavazzi. Those two are very fast all the time. Jarrett won the championship 2 years ago, and Vinny won the Daytona 250, and he won a race at Richmond. And that's the thing. He's good on the short tracks, which is another one of my strengths. So it's going to be interesting battling with him on those tracks less than a mile.
And I said it earlier, debating what's going to move forward. You're moving into the role of the second driver, possibly the first at Hoffman Family Racing. That was a big question on Vinny last year. And that was a huge debate for, what going into the offseason and silly season, what was going to happen with Hoffman Family Racing. A lot of different rumors. Vinny left and is now the number 1 driver at Thunderbolt. What does it mean to you to possibly be the new leader, or one of the co-leaders, I should say, of Hoffman Family Racing leading forward into the future?
It's a lot to take on, but you have to be a strong leader as you run through the season. And Riley, being I guess at this point you could almost call him a veteran of the league. He knows what to do. I've been around league racing for a couple of years. I think I know my fair share. And Michael's always been very fast, and he can keep up with just like the rest of us can. So I think it's all going to be a huge team effort. No one's really going to be like the clear-cut leader, depending on how the season goes. Don't get me wrong. If one of us wins like 6 races and the other one wins like maybe 2, then that's a different story. But for the foreseeable future, I can all see us getting pretty close amounts of wins to each other, and all of us are going to run pretty deep into the playoffs.
Definitely. And one thing about you're doing a lot of transitioning. One transition I want to ask about, because I haven't even asked about it as well, and we're both ventured into this together. You came up from the Cup Series. You came up from the Truck Series all the way to the Cup Series. But one thing that transition that you haven't really talked about, you transitioned from a driver to a owner in the series you just competed in. How's that transition been for you, and how has it been so far as we look to get a campaign going this year with a talented group of drivers?
Well, I think being a driver and an owner is it's definitely going to be fun to do. Manage both at the same time. Me being an owner driver, I'm leeching in a couple of extra races this year. Hopefully, can keep Tyler McDonald's time at bay and make the extra Daytona race. But this year is going to be it's going to be cool as an owner, and the transition has been good. You've helped a lot with it, helping me into your organization and taking me under your wing. And I think Extra is a great league, and it's definitely something I want to stay involved with in the future. So I don't want to just say, oh, I want a championship here, I'll see you later. No, I want to be here still as an owner for some years to come.
Definitely, and that's something that we've all set up here at Ford. If it came down to it, if Ford was no longer an option, and I think a lot of drivers might get this question later, if it came down to Ford, and that not being an option, what team do you think would best fit you to be able to move on to if that decision were to arise?
I would have to go with a team that's very composed and has a good legacy behind it. So I think my 2 best options would be, and it has to be championship caliber teams that run well all the time. So in years past and now, Misscraft and Team Drew have run wonderfully. Drew Gio has won championships. Tyler McDonald has won multiple. He's considered the greatest of all time in this league, and those are the two teams that I would narrow it down to. Obviously, I would consider all offers, but if I got one from those two, I say they would be set up above the rest, and that's assuming that Ford is completely out of the picture, and I couldn't go to say McGinnis.
Yeah, and that definitely, I don't think that door will be slammed shut anytime soon. And this is one question. I'm gonna pass it off to Robert to finish off this interview with a few questions more from him. But this is my last question from me overall. You've had a oh, somebody's getting a phone call. You've had a history of building your way up into OMA, but one guy that before you even got a chance to race a full season with him, and you just mentioned him, Tyler McDonald, is already retired from full-time Cup Series racing. Of course, he's going to do part-time deals here and there. He's going to be racing in the Enduro that we're going to be racing in tonight. But looking overall, what is the big thing that about Tyler McDonald and not being able to race a full season with him? What's your thoughts on that, and what's your thoughts on Tyler McDonald overall and the legacy he has left at OMA and the path I'd say he paved for drivers like you and Riley Goff heading into the future?
I can't say enough about Tyler McDonald. I mean, he's just such a class act all the time, very fast, and he's very humble. He's not one of those guys that just goes out and brags, and then sure you can brag all you want whenever you're as good as Tyler McDonald, but he doesn't go and do that. He's always very humble, always very kind. It's a shame that he can't be here, and the legacy he left behind is going to be untouched. He's one of the founders of the league, winningest driver of all time, at least for now. I don't see anybody passing any of the records that he has set, except for maybe championships, seeing he has two. But keep in mind, in a league that hasn't had that many seasons, 2 championships is a lot. And like I said, a lot of wins, a lot of people behind him. I've had full blown conversations with him in one or two of the endurance challenges, and he's just such a great guy. And it's going to be a shame that I'm not going to be able to run the season with him this year.
Definitely, and I'm like I mentioned after this question, I'm going to send it off to Robert for him to ask a few more questions before we allow Mr. Smith to go ahead. I think he's got to eat some dinner, and then he's got to get set up, of course, for that big race we have tonight. So go ahead and Robert, go ahead and close this out for this interview. If you have any further questions, or if you just want to close it out, whatever suits best for you.
Alrighty, I just have one question, and then we'll wrap it up. You said earlier that Tim Moore is a possible esports contender. I've seen you drive, and I've seen you compete against him, and I know that you can compete with him, and if not, beat him. Is esports and the NASCAR esports is a huge series. There's been people that have won a lot of money. Is that a possible destination for you that you want to be at in the future?
It's funny. I've thought about that a lot. And in order for me to do that, I would have to get so much better at making a custom setup. I am awful at those. So I think that would be a learning process for me. On raw speed, if it was just raw speed and no custom setups, like if everyone was just able to run the presets like we do here in the OMA, then I say, heck yeah, put me in there right now. I'll go there, win some races, win some money. But right now, it's not the biggest of possibilities. Definitely somewhere I want to be in the future. That's somewhere I could maybe see myself in, say, 2 to 3 years. But as of right now, I want to focus on the OMA and some of the other smaller leagues that I've been running in and just rack up the wins, rack up the experience, and maybe get a title or two while I'm around.
Alrighty.
Definitely, and big thank you to Ben Smith. We know a lot is going to be coming on your plate as the OMA season nears, so we want to thank you for joining us, man. And hey, good luck tonight. Hopefully you or me can go out there and pick up the win tonight in the OMA Endurance Challenge at Charlotte.
Hey, thank you, Franks. I'll see you there, man.
Hey. All right, now we're going to move on to and this is probably going to be my most favorite segment of the evening. It's going to be the crew chief segment himself, Robert Harding, talking about the biggest NASCAR news all in 60 seconds. Right now, we're going to try to get the timer up for 60 seconds. Let me get it right here. It's already trying to pull off to the side. Here we go. Right here, 60-second timer, and we are going to start right now. Robert, with the sponsorship being an issue for Kyle Larson, how successful or unsuccessful will that 5 team be this season within Hendrick Motorsports?
I think I could have told you last year when this started first popping up that sponsorship's going to be an issue for this team. No big company wants to sponsor the guy who went on iRacing and said the N-word to everyone. So no team wants to be the first team to do that or first sponsor to do that. So I see that 5-car running similar to kind of what the 88 did in 2018, if that's a comparison, like it is a comparison, obviously. But I see him running well, but not great. A sponsorship, Rick Hendrick, he's a very rich man, but we got to face it, he is not that rich. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Definitely, and right there, I mean, you hear it. That's, of course, we're going to be coming out every week with a NASCAR news story here for Gone in 60 Seconds. That was probably the biggest one about the question marks leaving for Kyle Larson. So, of course, Robert Harding giving his clear-cut crew chief opinion here on the Kyle Larson situation. Next week, we're going to be talking about the qualifying and practice rules set for next year and getting his opinion on that, especially with Mr. Robert Harding being the crew chief that he is. It's definitely going to be concerns for him in that position with the other teams in NASCAR. Now moving on to talking about the OMA Media Day here. Our last thing we have to talk about, it's going to be starting tomorrow, and like we asked Ben Smith here today, you can ask your own favorite OMA drivers questions, whether it's me, whether it's Ben Smith, Raleigh Goff, Drew Jua, Tim Moore, any of those guys. You can ask them all questions. All you have to do is go to OMA_league on either Instagram or Twitter. Give them a follow and comment on a post, a question for a driver for OMA Media Day starting tomorrow. Coverage and responses, I'm sure, will be posted on both, so be sure to keep an eye out. And right here, we're going to be hitting the checkered flag for the Experts of Racing Sportscast. Be sure to catch us on January 11th at kickoff as the Experts of Racing Sportscast will be having their national championship watch party. You can catch me. I think maybe possibly if he can, Robert Harding's going to be there. I know Voles may pop in if he has the availability. He's probably going to be at work. But join us as we watch college football history right back here on the Experts of Racing Sportscast channel. Definitely going to be a lot of fun talking to those guys. And of course, like I mentioned before, as we move down here, you do not want to miss us here next week. Fridays now, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, weekly. Catch us 3 here on the Experts of Racing Sportscast as we talk about the biggest news from college football, the NFL, NASCAR, and professional wrestling. And of course, all your favorite leagues around the NASCAR Heat community. We want to thank you for joining us here on the Experts of Racing Sportscast. Do not forget, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever is the best for you. Be sure to show your support. The more support, the more content, and the better the content we can produce for you. And once again, for Vols Fan 88 himself and crew chief Robert Harding and our guest appearance of Ben Smith, we want to thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next time.